For Kamaru Usman, there's a million reasons you would bet against him in this fight. There's a reason why he was the underdog going into this fight, right? Hasn't fought in 3 years. The gossip about his knees. Not only has he not fought in 3 years, hasn't had a win in a hot second. But in hindsight, looking back on it, look at his losses. If you look at the losses to Leon Edwards, you look at the loss to Hamzat, which, must I remind you, was on like a 10 or 12-day notice. So granted, he hasn't won a fight since 2023 in October, and that was UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. So he fought Hamzat, which, he's fighting at 85. Kamaru's definitely not an 85er. Hamzat's a big 85er. Took on like a 10 or 12-day notice, and I had that fight a draw. That first round you could give 10-8 to Hamzat, and then 2 and 3 you'd probably give to Kamaru, but it's in Abu Dhabi. Of course, they're not going to go that direction for a foreigner, so you got what you got there. But that should have kind of gave you an insight of Kamaru's still a beast. And then if you look at his Leon Edwards fight, where he lost majority decision, he was definitely not doing terrible in that fight. And then must I remind you, the one with the headshot, kill shot, he was winning that entire fight until that last 50 seconds, whatever it was in that fifth round. So it's not like he's over the hill, but I just think the long layoff, in your head you hear 3 losses. But if you look at the losses, all signs kind of pointed like Kamaru still should have something in the tank. I think a lot of that factored in with Joaquin Buckley. I think looking at the fight, especially the first 4 rounds, whenever a young prospect like Joaquin Buckley fights a legend like Kamaru Usman, it goes 2 ways, where they just have no respect and they think he's washed up and they're going to dog walk him and run right through him, and there's just no respect. Or there's so much respect where they don't pull the trigger, they're gun shy, they're really not going for the kill, they have too much respect, they grew up watching them. So example of that's Pat Barry Crow Cop. If you remember that fight, the OGs will remember this fight. The new kids out there like, Pat Barry, Rose's coach, he's fighting the UFC. And he was a kickboxer, and one of his heroes was Mirko Crow Cop, and they paired those guys up. And now this is before I fought Mirko, so I'll give you some hindsight here. When Pat Barry fought Crow Cop, he looked up to him so much, they were hugging and high-fiving during the fight. And Pat could have won that fight maybe, but because he had so much respect for Crow Cop, he didn't have that killer instinct, and Crow Cop, if I remember right, ended up choking him out. But it's weird. They throw like head kicks and high-five each other for blocking. There was just too much respect on Pat Barry's end. So you can kind of get that. And when I fought Crow Cop, I think it was right after that fight, the first thing Joe Silva said to me, so they gave me the fight, and then the first thing Joe Silva said to me, I was at some UFC promotional thing, he walks up to me and goes, "Hey, you're not going to play that grab-ass respect game like Pat did. We gave you this fight for a reason. You better do work." And I'm like, trust me, I do like Crow Cop, but no. The way you show your respect to these legends is by taking it to them. That's how you show respect. Give them everything you got, and if they're the better man, all good. That's why they're legends. But you show respect to these legends by freaking trying to take their head off. You don't high-five them. You don't show them this, weird respect in the cage that you wouldn't show to another young fighter. I hate when guys do that. So going back to relate this to Kamaru Usman and Joaquin Buckley, Kamaru is probably top 3 greatest welterweights of all time, living legend, right? And his work speaks for itself. With Joaquin Buckley, the build-up to this fight was all respect. He's this legend, and he was showing a ton of respect. But I saw the disrespect with the way he fought Kamaru Usman, meaning in his camp and his coaches, they must have thought Kamaru Usman's knees are so bad. He's had 3-year layoff. He hasn't won a fight in God knows how long. He's a shell of himself. So they must have not worked on any ground game or any wrestling, I assume, because anyone that knows the game, even at, like, say, a blue belt level, when you see Joaquin Buckley's jiu-jitsu off his back and his takedown defense, even if you only wrestled in high school, you would realize like that there was no preparation. There was no game plan for the takedown or if he were to get taken down. I assume the whole camp was on the feet. He looked so amateur from the bottom. His takedown offense was atrocious. So when he fought Colby Covington, he definitely looked more prepared for the takedowns. And I also think Colby Covington actually has kind of aged faster and doesn't have nowhere near the pop and cardio and explosiveness that he had, back in the day with those Kamaru Usman fights and Gilbert Burns. That's kind of, that version of Colby's gone. So I think his team and the fans, including myself, watched the Colby fight and was like, oh no, his takedown defense is really good. He can actually defend this. Kamaru's kind of screwed. But I assume Joaquin Buckley's camp was just striking the whole time. When Kamaru Usman would shoot from one side to the other and just blast double him or just a traditional single leg, and Joaquin Buckley, instead of defending, doing the necessary fundamentals of, fighting the hands, grabbing the elbows, knee down, hips back, just the basics. The basics where if your child's in a wrestling camp right now, they're probably learning that. He decided to kind of overhook and then attack Kamaru with punches and then just get taken down. And it only took Kamaru 4 takedowns per round. 4 takedowns total through round through 4. Because you get 1 takedown and that's it. Joaquin Buckley was a turtle on his back. Had no game plan, no framing, couldn't get to his feet, couldn't get to his hip, stayed flat on his back, didn't get to the side, no cage walk, nothing, man. It's alarming. It's alarming. So I think Joaquin Buckley found out, like the rest of the world found out, that Kamaru isn't washed. Kamaru's a legend for a reason. You guys didn't prepare for that, and you just got outclassed. 1 through 4, you just got absolutely outclassed. I can't believe they got fight of the night. Huh? Fight of the night. I mean, you could give that first round 10-8 if you wanted. There's nothing. And then that 5th round, he started to do some stuff better. I don't know if it was him changing his game plan or if it was more of the case of Kamaru Usman getting a little tired. So, he went from being explosive to just kind of telegraphing his takedowns, so it made it easier, and if Joaquin would have fought like that the whole fight, he probably would have had a lot more success, but it was tough to see. That being said, this isn't the last year from Joaquin Buckley. There's because it's not a case that he can't do it. It's not a case that he hasn't done it before. I think it was a case of just overlooking Kamaru Usman, one of the greatest to ever do it, and he learned the hard way. He's still a young guy. Was he 30, 31? This is his first super test. And I think there's just fundamental things that he can do that are easy to do where he can be tougher to take down and keep the fight on its feet. Because if you look at the welterweight division, if his takedown defense stayed that way, he ain't going nowhere. But Joaquin's a smart guy, comes from a good camp. They'll learn from this. There's fundamentally things he can do that I'm sure he already knows and just didn't do in that fight. And he'll get back to the top. I truly believe that. And when I look at Joaquin Buckley and these young guys, especially when they lose a fight like this, I have more faith in Joaquin Buckley making changes because these are simple changes. This isn't something where it's a striking deficiency or it's a wrestling deficiency where he just has no hope and there's not enough hours in the day to fix these mistakes. It's not that. The stuff he needs to do is pretty rudimentary and And I'm sure he knows, and he just has to change his approach. All good.